Welcome to this explainer. Go ahead and settle in. Take a slow, deep breath and let your mind travel to a place where time, well, it just seems to stand beautifully still. Today we're exploring the medieval splendor and the incredibly rich culture of Bhaktapur, Nepal. We're going to be looking at some truly breathtaking pictures and digging into the deep roots of this ancient city.
Bhaktapur, or Bodgaon, literally the city of devotees, is a major tourist destination that takes visitors back in time. Just listen to that description. Imagine yourself stepping right onto the warm, sun-baked, brick-paved roads of this ancient city. It's perched up on a hill at 1,400 meters. You're entirely surrounded by these charming red brick houses, stepping into a way of life that's been preserved since medieval times. It's remarkably untouched by all that rapid urbanization we see elsewhere.
Okay, let's dive into this stunning architecture. When you walk into Bhaktapur Durbar Square, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, by the way, you're immediately greeted by the 55-window palace. King Yaksha Malla built this back in the 15th century, and its balcony is an absolute masterpiece of intricately carved dark wood. Right beside it, the Golden Gate, crested with a golden Garuda and the goddess Teleju Bhawani. When that soft, golden hour light hits the magnificent metalwork of the gate and the dark wood of the palace, man, the entire monument zone practically glows.
Section 1. Crafting the Golden Hour. The Artisans of Bhaktapur.
To really understand this artisan culture, we have to look at the magic of Bhaktapur mornings. Imagine it's 6:30 a.m. in Pottery Square, or Kumale Tole as the locals call it. The morning light is raking low across these beautiful terracotta surfaces. Everywhere you look, there are rows of drying pots and local potters with clay-dusted hands shaping wet earth on rapidly spinning wheels. It's this perfect combination of deep warmth and incredible texture. Honestly, no camera filter could ever replicate it. The human element behind all this clay is just fascinating. See, pottery here isn't just a job, it's a profound heritage. It's carried on primarily by the Prajapati, a caste within the indigenous Newar community. They've been continuously shaping these earthen pots, water jars, and clay lamps since the Lichavi period. That dates back to roughly 400 to 750 AD. Think about that for a second. That is over 1,000 years of unbroken, generational knowledge passing right through their hands. And the best part? You don't just have to stand there and watch. For as little as 150 Nepalese rupees, you can actually sit down with a local instructor right there in the square. You can feel the wet clay spinning under your own palms and experience that unique, profound pride of molding a beautiful object with your own hands. It literally connects you directly to a millennium of craftsmanship. Leaving Pottery Square, if we take a stroll slightly east, we find the quieter, but honestly equally stunning, Dattatreya Square. In that soft, diffused morning light, you can perfectly see the fine details of the 15th century peacock window. It's widely celebrated as Nepal's most famous wood carving. The slanted morning shadows reveal every single meticulous cut in the wooden screen, showcasing an artistic mastery that is, well, it's simply mind-boggling.
Section 2. The Pulse of Biscuit Jatra. Festivals of Color.
But, Bhaktapur isn't always quiet and serene. To understand its explosive New Year's festival, we actually have to look at a rather dark and gripping ancient legend. So, long ago, the king of Bhaktapur declared that whoever married his beautiful daughter would become the next king. But there was a terrifying catch. Every single morning after the wedding night, the new husband was found dead. Man after man perished, and the entire kingdom was just paralyzed by terror.
Finally, a brave prince arrived, armed with a blessed sword. He stayed awake on his wedding night and watched as two deadly serpents crawled right out of the sleeping princess. He struck them down, saving his life and lifting the curse. The king was so overjoyed that he declared a massive festival to celebrate the victory of good over evil. And that, right there, is the very foundation of Biscuit Jatra. This legend builds into an unbelievable, multi-day spectacle. On April 10th, a massive 3-story wooden chariot is dragged into Tamadi Square for an intense tug-of-war between the eastern and western halves of the city. Then, on April 14th, a huge wooden pole, which represents those defeated serpents, comes crashing down to mark the new year. And the very next day, in the nearby town of Thimi, Sindur Jatra begins. The entire town literally turns into a cloud of bright orange vermilion powder as palanquins are carried through the streets. It's wild.
All of that cheering and polling definitely works up an appetite, which brings us to a crucial part of Bhaktapur's living culture, the food. You absolutely must taste juju dal, also known as the king of yogurts. Made from rich buffalo milk and fermented right in those porous clay pots from Pottery Square, it's got this custard-like texture that's so thick you can literally cut it with a knife. Pair that with a small clay cup of traditional Isla, which is a strong, clear rice wine, and you're truly tasting the essence of the city.
Section 3. Respecting the sacred spaces, etiquette, and lenses.
Now, as captivating as this city is, we absolutely must remember that these are sacred spaces. There's a massive difference between snapping a casual photo with your phone and arriving with a commercial crew. For a casual tourist, photography is generally allowed, and let's face it, Bhaktapur is one of the most photogenic cities on Earth. But if you're a professional documentary crew or a commercial filmmaker, you can't just show up and press record. The rules are entirely different.
To document these UNESCO sites professionally without causing any cultural disruption, there's a pretty rigorous multi-step bureaucratic process. First, you have to appoint a local coordinating agency in Nepal. Then, you submit a highly detailed itinerary and a declared equipment list. All of this goes to the Ministry of Information and Communication, and importantly, the Department of Archaeology. Finally, when you are actually granted the permit, you have to film under the direct supervision of an official government liaison officer whose expenses you cover.
And what if you want to capture those sweeping aerial views? Well, the drone rules are incredibly strict and closely monitored by the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal. Drones absolutely cannot fly within 1,000 meters of sensitive areas, nor directly above archaeological sites. Furthermore, they are restricted to a 300-meter horizontal distance from the operator, a strict 100-meter height limit, and a maximum flight endurance of exactly 15 minutes. This ensures the ancient architecture and the local communities are fully protected from aerial interference.
Whether you're a filmmaker or just a casual visitor, your behavior matters immensely. Here are the essential rules of etiquette to honor the local way of life. Always, and I mean always, ask permission before taking close-up portraits of artisans or locals. When walking around temples or stupas, you must walk clockwise. Always remove your shoes before entering homes or temples. Absolutely no leather, like belts or bags, is allowed inside temple precincts. Never touch anything, especially religious objects or food, with your feet. And finally, avoid public displays of affection.
Here's a really charming and somewhat surprising fact to keep in mind while you interact with the wonderfully welcoming Nepalese people. When you ask a question, if a local shakes their head from left to right, which in many Western cultures means no, in Nepal, it actually means yes. It's a small detail, sure, but understanding these nonverbal cues is such a beautiful way to connect more deeply with the people you meet.
I want to leave you with this thought. Bhaktapur is not a museum enclosed behind glass. The clay is still wet on the wheels. The chariot ropes are still pulled with absolute fury. The wood carvings still cast shadows every single morning. As you walk these brick-paved streets, honoring the rules, tasting the juju dao, and framing your perfect shot. Are you merely an observer taking a picture? Or are you stepping into and respecting a 1,000-year-old living history? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.